Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Interview a Crafter, episode 4. Tonight we have Mr. Victor Haugen, aka Robert Paulsen, on Facebook. Make sure you can hear us now, and everything is good to go. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I don't know why, for whatever reason, OBS and these different platforms we try to use struggle with technical difficulties from time to time. But yeah, so everybody give Victor a nice big hello. We're going to test and make sure everybody can hear you now. So, hey, if you can hear Victor, say hi.
Hear us now, and everything is good. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I don't know why.
Just start picking up on the audio. Okay. Hello, everyone.
If you can hear both of us, give us some comments. Give us some. Somebody said, "Give us some hearts." I think Deanna. That's what Deanna did last time. Give us some hearts.
Where's Robert Paulsen? I thought he was going to be here.
He's not.
Oh, come on, Facebook. Don't do like that. Where's the comments? There it is. 8 comments.
Yeah, if you can hear, please say yes or I can. I can hear you. That's good. Deanna says she can hear us. Both of us. Nice. Good deal. All right, so we're in there.
Okay, we're back.
So I want to give my little intro
Shady's
again.
back.
Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. This is episode 4 of Interview a Crafter with Mr. Victor Haugen, aka Robert Paulsen. He is the 3D maker, the 3D molder. He crafts with us on a regular basis and helps us come up with crazy ideas that help us bring a lot of these crazy, impossible cut things to reality. He's going to show us a couple things as far as what he's working on and how things are going for him, and get to know Victor a little bit better so that way you guys can understand and get to meet the guy behind the inappropriate comments. Not that they're ever inappropriate, right, Victor?
Fair. Yes, always.
They're almost always inappropriate. So again, I know we did this just a minute ago, but give me a rundown real quick of what's going on your screen, because it's impressive.
It's so up here. This is my Ender 3. It's printing off some honeycomb, like right now, in real time. And then over here, to the top left, you have my Anycubic Photon mono. And it is printing off the object in the bottom center, as well as a Black Bear Glitter strut topper. Because somebody asked me about that. So those should be done in about 45 minutes, which means I'll probably be able to take them off. The other thing I'm going to work on is the straw topper. It is flat on the bottom that I'm printing. Oh, there's my dick. But this guy is clearly not flat, so that's an issue. And I want to get a very nice mate across here to compensate for all that curvature. So I got some tools that we can use for that. We'll take some measurements and we'll work on some 3D modeling where I can, fix that flat bottom. Because in the words of Queen, flat bottom girls don't make the rock and roll go around.
Give me one super quick second, because I'm actually going to hardwire in my Mac Mini to make sure I'm getting the smoothest thing, because it says I'm dropping frames and I don't want to lose you. So give me one quick second, but keep on keeping on.
I'm also hardwired in. I agree with that consensus. All the hard wires. In case you guys don't know, I have music playing that I can hear, but you guys can't. And it's great. This is the steampunk handle that I worked on most recently. This is what I'm going to give to Heather to use for fun. It's actually not glued together, so I can take the whole thing apart. Well, this is glued to this guy. This guy is glued to get this guy. This guy's not glued to this, and this guy's not glued to this. But it's really cool. And I painted it because I had to.
All right, let's see if that makes things better now that we're hardwired in. Because we should be a ton better. Okay, we're consistently pulling about 3 kilobits now, so we should be good. All right, so you got all kinds of stuff printing. Well, literally like while we're going. I think that's super cool that you have it. We're like, yeah, that's all going right now.
Yes.
That's all being printed in real time.
1, 2, 3 of the 5 printers are actively printing. One, I have to finish some leveling it because it's been acting wonky, and I had to turn it off. And when I turned it back on, I found that I need to re-level it. So I started the process. I didn't finish it. It's got a little probe, so it has to go down. It takes like 26 measurements, and I have to go in and get like a piece of paper and bring it all the way down, and then like get adjusted so it's just the right height. And then after I do that, it's never right. So then I have to start printing, and then while it's printing and it's doing that first layer, that's when I readjust it.
I'll tell you, I think the 3D printing stuff is fascinating.
The Ender 5, which is what I'm going to try to set up to give to you guys, is currently also not printing anything. And I did unplug the device that I had running it just so I could have the camera look at the photon, because that camera was already there. So it's like, let's move this over here.
So you don't
can watch
you don't
something
have these
that's doing stuff.
Gotcha. You don't have these set up on the regular, or do you? You just like you have them setting up so that while you're at work, you're watching to make sure everything's good.
Yeah, no, the Ender 3 I've had set up like that forever. I would like to get them all set up so that I can manage them remotely. I can always check in on a part, and if it fails, I can be like, "Whoa, stop!" Can't necessarily do anything about it until I can physically connect to it, but I can at least stop the printer and keep it from turning into this messy, melted blob of spaghetti noodle plastic. There's actually somebody that's working on like an AI model to recognize when the let me turn my volume down because my headphones are screaming at me. There we go. Yeah, so there's an AI model to basically detect when you get all the spaghetti of plastic just everywhere, and it'll stop the printer or send you an alert.
Gotcha.
I haven't set these up to send me email or SMS notifications, but it's not super crazy hard.
Yeah, I imagine
I just have to get an email account.
So Mona asked what the honeycombs were for.
So the honeycombs get put on cups that Heather makes or anybody else makes, because I have sold several.
So Victor runs an Etsy store. In case you're not seeing it, he's got it listed, his store, up on everything here. shitvicmakes.com. He's got his own Etsy store. He does a lot of stuff there. You sell a good bit on Etsy too, right?
I do.
I love it.
A little less lately.
Awesome.
But I also haven't really been keeping inventory up, and I pushed a ton of inventory over to Black Bear Glitters because I'm moving soon. So it's going to be really hard for me to run the store, print things, ship things. And I was like, let me try to get a whole bunch of this done. I'll let Black Bear Glitter sell on their site. People can get products from there when they go to buy glitter, and they can save on shipping.
I think it was a smart move. Are you going to put your shop on vacation mode while you're moving?
I will be.
Gotcha. Smart move.
However, people can always contact me and ask me about stuff.
Good deal.
I still have that 16-inch clock mold that I'm working on. That's actually sitting over here.
So, for those of you that don't know, Victor is the guy who we give him ideas, and he comes up with how to make those ideas become realities. So, if you ever need anything, he's the guy who's like the one who's coming up to us, and whenever we're like, "Hey, can you make this?" He's like, "Yeah, of course, I'll make it. No biggie."
It's so big. I had to print it in 2 pieces.
Oh my
supposed to
god.
make a mold out of this. But they specifically requested this font and everything else. I gotta smooth all this out, sand it, coat it, glue these 2 pieces together, make sure there's no seams, and then I gotta build a form to go around it, which I'll probably honestly just print it, but it'll be 4 semicircles, which I can fit on the printer. And then I'll piece all those together around it, and then I'll pour silicone over the whole thing. And then when it's done, I'll peel it all off, and I'll have a nice, lovely mold, which I've already quoted them as being like $100-something because it's a lot of silicone.
Yeah, no joke. That's what I was about to ask, because that looks like it's a lot of filament just to be able to make that, because that's 3D printed, right?
Yes.
Jeez.
It is, but it isn't. So the complexity of things is what uses up filament. So all these contours actually take up more than the empty space. And then for this large empty space, I think on this one I did 10% infill. So typically for a lot of my parts, wall thickness, if I need it to be strong, like my mold forms and stuff, it'll be 1.4 millimeters thick on all the walls, which is how thick they are wide.
Mm-hmm.
And then the top and bottom will be at least 1 millimeter to 1.4 usually, because I do those in 2.2 millimeter layer heights, so then I can print them quicker than if I do smaller layer heights.
So I got to tell you guys really quick, what you just heard is like every conversation we have, which I find fascinating, but I think it lulls Heather to sleep sometimes because she's like, I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't care.
And that's almost always how it happens. And it makes me laugh because you are always like mad. Like Herman even said, like you're the mad scientist behind a lot of the stuff that we come up with. And I think it's absolutely crazy. But people are talking about how they need your weld mold. They need this, they need that, because like Madison's like, that weld mold takes forever.
Yes. And I forgot to check my mailbox today, but I should have 2 welds to make a mold out of, because I had somebody send those to me. And those look beautiful. Actually, I think I have a picture.
Can you show it again?
So I can throw it on the screen.
So Kelly, verify exactly what you're looking for. If you want that clock mold that he was just talking about, that he's planning to make, he can hold that up, I'm sure, again. Otherwise, you can show up that handle, because I know that thing's really cool.
The handle is super cool. So this is my steampunk handle.
So since you can't hear, what's it say? What's it say on it?
Scratch. So this says, actually, let me move it over here. Let me change my video around. It's going to give me 1 second to set this up. So let's take that off. We'll make this one bigger. And we'll put that on top.
Yeah, and Kelly wants to see the clock again, if you'll show it when you get done.
I will. Transitions. Oop, that did change. There we go. Okay. So now you should be able to see a little better.
Yeah, we can see the wrenches.
Turn my monitor so I can see what you see. So these are my wrenches. These are actual wrenches. This one is not. This one's plastic. Well, it's just not plastic. It's resin.
Your audio got really quiet on me.
That's because I'm not directly in front of the laptop.
Gotcha.
There we go. So, looks like a wrench. Looks a lot
and that's
like a wrench.
That's a hand. For those of you that don't know, that's a handle that goes on a cup. You can actually epoxy that to a cup. That's a handle that we created, that Victor created. We gave him the idea of it by kind of talking to him and showing him what we had come up with. And he ended up coming up with a model to where now he's got it to where he can print these. And you'll be selling these on your Etsy store too, right?
Actually, already am. So they come out looking like this. All the blue material's gone, so any of the ones I'm making now are going to be gray. But this is what they look like when they come off the printer. I realized I probably wasn't doing one of my slicer settings correctly, and I can actually get these lines to go away. But to get them to go away, light sanding. I also use some primer and then a paint. Um, and I sand between. But yeah, so this is what it looks like painted. I put a little wash on there so it looks nice and greasy, dirty, like a rich shit. And then if you're going to mount this, I'd sand this down to get all that paint off and rough that surface up. And then I would just epoxy this right to the old cup. And as you can see, it's got a nice, let's see if I get, it's got a nice fit. Kind of curves to the cup.
And these are designated
So
for a specific cup or no?
So they'll fit the 20 or 30 ounce straight walls. Actually, they'll probably honestly fit any straight wall. The football, though, they will not fit the football because there's additional curves. But if it's a straight wall, you'll be able to get enough resin in that gap, if there is a gap, to take care of it. There's also a little flex in these. So if you were to get some epoxy underneath and then clamp it down, you can take that out.
Could you use like a UV resin to adhere that to it, like an E6000 or something, to hold it in place enough so that you could epoxy it?
Use a UV resin. What I would use, I have a little pack of it sitting around here. I would use industrial resin. And by industrial, I mean it's not really industrial. You just get it from a hardware store instead of an art craft store. And that's some of this stuff right here. So this is like 5-minute fast epoxy. And you basically rip this open. You mix the two parts up. It smells wonderful, like burnt hair. You mix them all up. You take
it smells wonderful,
on,
sarcastically speaking.
Yes. You put a little right here and a little blob here, and then you press that on there. And then I would put like a big old rubber band around it or a clamp on here to hold these down. And then in 5 minutes, it should be set. I think it's 24 hours. It's completely cured. But it'll set up really quickly. And then once that's set, like it's going to continue to curve. But if it's set, you can move on to the next step. You can be like, all right, this is set up on here.
We can't see you.
I'm not going to be.
Yeah, we can.
I'm not going to be using the handle as a handle. So I'm just going to put on the turner. I'm going to continue to put more resin on the cup. And so it's got these feet, so you get more surface area for the handle to mount to the cup. And then those are also designed to let resin get over top. So that way you get a really good, strong bond of the handle into the cup. Stronger than probably anything anybody's doing unless they're welding an actual wrench handle to the cup.
Yeah. Man, that's neat. You know what I think would add an extra layer of dimension too is if you took the base or the fittings where it actually adheres to the cup and you made them to where they're going to look almost welded too, like if you roughed those up to make them look like welds on the bottom side.
Yeah, so
I like the threading. I think the threading's ingenious.
Oh, that's actual thread. That's a thread pitch. Like, this
so
is
cool.
a M8 over here, and then this is a M10 threaded bolt. So technically, if the bottom wasn't on there, you should be able to throw that on there. It's the perfect size.
So you actually have. Are those actual like realistic size bolts as far as the head of them, the thread of them, all of that?
So the heads might not correlate directly to a
but still your attention to detail is incredible.
This is a 17 millimeter bolt head and this is a 10 millimeter bolt shank. This is the M10 with a 17 millimeter head, and then I could use the M10 because I wanted a thicker one. So I had to use the M8. I would use this as the bottom and do this as the top because it's going to have the most load.
That makes sense.
But yeah, 17 millimeter on top.
So it does make a difference as far as how you place it.
It does, but it doesn't. Ideally, though, I'd put the bigger one on top because
just a recommendation.
Bigger, the bolt's a little bit bigger. It's probably going to be more comfortable than having the smaller one on top. But if you want to put the smaller one on top, you can put the smaller one on top. If you want custom text on here, I can do custom text because Sequoia knows about that.
Yeah, I was just about to ask because you can move on to the next one, which is what you have got right there, showing Miss Fawn's name.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one I started working on. But this is like March.
Yeah. It's been a long time in the making.
I looked at a lot of old wrenches and I finally ended up coming up with this design. So this is similar to an actual crescent wrench design that exists. And then I created this model complete from scratch, which was very time consuming. A lot of the other pieces on here, not very not very hard to make. This guy though, I had to model this whole thing. You have no idea how many measurements go into something until you get to measure it. So like, if somebody were going to make a 3D model of this Allen wrench, they might be like, "Oh, that's not that hard. That's like 2 millimeter hex, and it's got a 9-degree bend." It's like, okay, but how far is that bend away? How far is it to here?
Right.
What's the curvature of the bend? Like all this other stuff, and then it's like, oh wow, there's a lot that goes into that.
Things
I
that
could
your
actually
average
model
bear
this
wouldn't think about, but you're like,
quicker.
I don't think it's that easy.
Yeah, I can actually open the model for this guy, and you can see how many measurements that are in there.
Yeah,
'Cause,
do
you
that
have a
really
measurement for
quickly
the
so
opening,
people can kind of see
like
what's going
absolutely
on.
everything.
And if you see that too, on the very bottom portion of the ring there, he's got custom creations put across the bottom, giving a
Oh, I
giving a shout
completely
out
went
to
off the
our group
board
here.
with logos. So I have custom creations. I got Fawn Hobby. On the back, I have shit that Vic makes, of course. And I
I
also
love
have
it.
established in Rincon, Georgia, 2019.
That's so
And
funny.
then just
Yeah,
for
because
funsies, I put
that's
patent pending
basis
on the
of
steel.
our group having been established in 2019, right?
Yes. Or just you guys starting to sell stuff. I actually asked Heather about it before I did all that. I didn't feel
That's
like
so
putting
cool.
design on a dime on there. I was like, that just doesn't sound very good.
It says patent pending at the top.
Okay. It does. Let's see. SolidWorks. Where's my wrench model? Let me turn that camera off. Transition. Okay. That's a wrench.
And while you're pulling that up, be thinking about your response to this question, which I already know the answer to. But
Oh boy.
how did you get into doing all of this? Like, where did this stem from? How did you get to this point?
STEM. Science, technology, whatever that acronym stands for. This is technical stuff. I've always had a fascination with technology, and I have been playing with it forever. And then, as far as getting into all the Etsy store stuff, that happened more as Heather being like, I know you have a 3D printer, and I need parts. And this person where I was getting parts from, they're always out of stock.
They are,
Can't get them any time. They had to refund like a whole bunch of orders because nobody could get it was the honeypot rings.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. I think I was at your house, and I actually modeled a honeypot ring just without measuring anything in like a few minutes. The honeypot's actually really, really simple. But this guy will actually roll this back to nothing. Ooh, look at that. All right, so then we're going to go here. So this is the first thing I did. This is my wrench blank. So let me orient this so we can look at it. All right, now I'm going to show you the sketch. This is how many measurements are on this wrench. Just right there.
Yeah, because you got the circle on both sides, which you have to then cut away a certain amount.
So that I didn't have to do any measurements because that I just based everything off of this guy. And I had to, here we go, we got some more. So I have all my fillets. So this is a fillet here. So I did the curves off the wrench.
Not to be
There's
confused with
another
Chick-fil-A.
Yes. And then I also put curves on the inside and on
This
the
video is
tips.
not sponsored.
And then this is a fun one. This is a variable fillet. So the radius of the curve is different across the whole handle. So like here, it's like a 3 millimeter curve. And then over here, it's like a 1 millimeter for all these little tiny ones, and it transitions along here. And I had my extrusions to add the text.
Yeah.
And then I had some more
Fancy
fillets. What were these
extrusion.
for? Were these to the backside? Oh, no, then I filleted the inside text. So the text, when I do it, it shows up as square. And so I actually rounded out the bottoms. So this is what it looks like. And it's
Oh, I got
square.
You were just cleaning
Add
up the
curvature.
edges.
Yep. So that way it's smooth. And then let's keep going. What is that one? Oh, that's... Yeah, these are all the texts because I do them a little differently. And what's this extra? This cut for? Oh, this is the one I did for Sequoia originally. So I actually have some text right here. This is not text. This was actually an image. I had to get the image size correctly. What open source would be recommended for a 13-year-old just starting out in 3D printing? Let's see. First of all, do you have a 3D printer?
That's what she was saying just
And
a minute
then-
ago. That I think she was saying that they just started by getting their young one, Ender 3. Yeah, she just got her youngest an Ender 3.
The 1 or the V2?
If she had either, is the software the same?
Yes and no. So the 1 has some differences in firmware and actual hardware. But the first thing to do with your Ender 3 is you're going to want to make some upgrades. Upgrades that I strongly recommend. 1, change the stock PTFE tube out with the Bowden PTFE. The reason for that is it's not a direct drive extruder. Here, let me put my video back on so you guys can see me.
She said it's a V2, by the way.
Okay, good. Yeah, me too. So that one's going to be a little quieter. It's got some other niceties. Let me just set that up. Okay. And then I got to move this back to where I am.
Victor, you're too
Oh.
big.
Let me. Now I see the issue. I changed the size of that one. There we go. I was changing the size of a different one. Apparently, I changed the size out.
Are you saying size matters,
So
Victor?
for the Ender, I mean, sometimes smaller is better. You can fit everywhere. So the Ender 3 V2
They still can't see you.
is a really good machine. Oh, I didn't transition it. There we go. I fixed it, but I didn't fix it. So the Ender 3 V2, really good machine. That's actually the one that's running in the top right corner up there. Mine actually has a custom add-on for a part I modeled to use as a plotter. And by plotter, the 3D printer can sketch things with an ink pen in whatever color I want. And I actually have some really cool sketches I've done with my 3D printer because it's a CNC machine, so you can do similar things.
So could you establish and
have a
put
whole thing on
adapters
Thingiverse
on
for
it
it.
to be able to do like actual CNC work, like wood-based CNC work? Or
Yes
no?
and no. So you could put, and people have done this, you could put a Dremel tool to do like engrave. Actually, Dremel wouldn't be ideal. One of those little engravers for like a jeweler would be a little bit better. And the reason for this is the gantry doesn't structurally have the strength required to do actual CNC. So it does CNC movements, it runs on G-code, but it doesn't have the strength to handle the vibrations and the pressure of actually doing CNC. The thing would like eventually just fall apart. You'd lose a lot of accuracy and precision. But for something little like that, you could probably put that little engraver on there. Use a similar method to what I do with the pen to basically put the engraver where you need and draw stuff and lift it up and down. You do have to have the Z-axis within like 3 to 5 millimeters on mine when you do the pen. For the laser engraver, or not laser engraver, for the jeweler engraver to like actually engrave in metal or whatever, I do a similar setup where there's a tension that basically pushes down on it. But then if it presses down too hard, the engraver will just kind of like lift up. But it just maintains some tension so you can actually get an engraving. And then test, 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 test some more, test, test, test. But yeah, so Ender 3 V2. Upgrade to the Bowden tubes. Upgrade the old bed springs. Those stock bed springs are awful. You should be able to get a set where they all come together. You should be able to get a Bowden tube and some bed springs. If you go on Amazon, it's ridiculous because you can't get just like 4 bed springs for $2 because they're dirt cheap. It's like $20, but they'll send you 50 springs, and you're just like, I have one printer. I only need 4, and they last a really long time. So I don't know why I need 100 of these. So those are 2 of the most important things. The next thing is to go ahead and start printing all your add-on and upgrades. So one of the very first ones I would do is I would do a spool holder. It was one of the first ones I did. I 3D printed bearings for it. I'm going to go grab it, though. We'll grab a similar one and some bearings and stuff. I will be right back.
Cool. So I'll chat with you guys really quickly, just to share with you a couple things. I love Victor to death, and I would say the same thing to him if he was sitting right there. He talks about things that even go over my head from time to time. I think it's fascinating how smart he is, and I know that it just blows my mind sometimes. He's going to come help us do things here at the house, as far as helping me run networking and stuff through my home, and we're going to discuss all kinds of different weird tech stuff because that's obviously the area that I'm in. But as you heard, if you haven't already, Victor started by doing a lot of the things that he's doing because he's been fascinated with technology for forever. And he said that for those of you that don't know, he does have that Etsy store. He's got several items that he's selling right now, things from honey pot rings to mesh sheets to those wrenches. Obviously, he's got football laces. He's got other things that he's listing as well, and already has listed. He does all kinds of really cool stuff. So if you haven't already at least looked at his shop, just do it, just to check in and see what's going on. I know he's got, I think, a discount code, so I'll ask him about that whenever he hops back on. Hi, Renee. And that way you guys can take advantage of discounts. If y'all have questions for him, don't hesitate to ask them. Laura, I'm reading her comments about her son being excited. So I'm excited for you. I think that's awesome. But, uh-oh. Oh, he's showing his printer from a different angle. So yeah, you guys can see what's going on because he's moving his camera around. Thank you, Sequoia. Yeah. So, if you have questions for Victor, don't hesitate to ask them. That's what he's here for. Because he's coming back with us right now. Everybody act normal. I don't think he has this on YouTube, Laura, but I know that this conversation will be recorded so that everything that happens here will be on YouTube as well. So if you have questions and want to be able to go back and rewatch it later, you're more than welcome to.
I actually have a YouTube video too for using the 3D printer as a plotter. So let me find that real quick, and I'll throw the link in here. Why not?
Yeah, so it's Heather's fault that you got started doing Etsy, is basically what you said. Heather asked why she's the one to blame, and the answer is because she's the one to blame, right?
Yes, she's the one to blame, 100%. Same thing for everyone. I'm up to 1.8 thousand views, and I did this in August.
Nice.
Right before I deployed.
So for those of you that don't know too, Victor is in the military as well. So to answer the next question that I usually ask most people is this something you do full-time? Is this something you do part-time? This is part-time for you, right?
Yes.
Is this something you would like to make full-time?
I don't really mind it being full-time, but it would be on a more grandiose scale if I were to do it full-time. because then I'd have people working for me. They can run the printers and all model things and do
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. You want to be the creator, and they could be the distributor, right?
Yeah, I don't. I don't want to be the one running prints and you know taking little bits of plastic off parts. Somebody else can do that. That because it's a non-skilled task. But yes, so for your Ender 3, V2, uh, that little part that I threw up in the chat, you're gonna want to print one of those off if you want to have some fun making some cool sketches. So this is one I did with my Ender 3, uh, with my little tool. So this has actually been sketched. I don't know how well you guys can see that.
Yeah,
I'll probably throw it over here.
we can see it.
Oh,
I can see it.
Okay. That was drawn with my 3D printer. I took the graphic, I did a little extra work on it. I've had people be like, "Can you make a video of how you process your image to then turn it into that?" And I'm like, eventually, whenever I have time, because making videos takes a lot of time.
It does. It's very
And
time
then you gotta
consuming.
get to edit them, and people don't realize how much work goes into that. So let's see. I can close that. Don't need that open anymore. Um,
So while we're waiting on that, next question: what's your favorite color? Just random.
my favorite color. Gosh, that's an odd one. I'm a huge fan of earth tones. Like I like grays and browns and greens. But yeah. Other perfect print.
Honey asked what branch of the military you were in.
Spool holder.
Army, because the audio cut out for a minute.
So you can get these skateboard bearings super cheap off of Amazon. They go with these. You can actually print other things that use these. And then you just drop this guy in here. And this guy spins. So your Ender 3v2, the original spool is basically sitting on like this flat bar. And it doesn't, well, actually, no, it's a round piece of plastic. It doesn't spin very well. Like there's a lot of resistance. And then when you get your little spool holder and you put it up on there and the thing's printing, it takes the load off the extruder because it spins so much more freely on the bearings. So the printer's not having to work to take the filament off here. So this has a kilogram of filament on it. It's a lot of work to like pull that off, but with those bearings, it's like nothing.
Do you ever have an issue with it going too quickly, like it pulling it too fast?
Not really, but the way you fix that is by having a filament guide. There are other spool holders that are designed to compensate for that. So they actually have some resistance, and they'll, if it takes filament off and it does some retractions, it'll actually wind itself back up a little bit. There's thresholds for how much it can wind back up because it's like a mechanical spring. So it kind of keeps pulling, and there's spring tension. And then when it lets it back, that spring kind of pulls it back, and then it can pull again.
Makes sense. Heather said, so basically the colors of
Spool
your
holder,
uniforms are your
definitely
favorite
do one
color.
of those. I guess. I don't know why earth tones are like my thing. I've got a strong appreciation for grays, and I don't know why. I don't know, I guess because gray goes with everything.
Now, you're not really in the cup scene. You're more in like the 3D side and things like that. So I know that you obviously look at a lot of cups, I'm sure, from our group and stuff. Or are you into the cup scene?
I don't really like making the cups. I don't really like making the cups. It's not my thing. And it would take away from the other stuff I do. I like making the cool parts so you guys can make the most awesome cups ever.
Yeah.
This is one of the cheapest ones that you can make with one of my parts. It's the old football laces.
Yeah.
Heather actually made this one. And then she was like, yeah, you can have this. I'm like, okay, cool. It looks like a football. I have the best looking laces. If you guys have been on Etsy, there's some people that 3D print some stuff, and it's garbage. I also have some of the best prices because I do both discounts on honeypot ring orders. Nobody else does them. I also do them in different sizes. Um, I will work with people to create custom sizes, but I love this because when I hold this cup, it feels like I'm holding a football, and I have to try really hard not to throw it because I'm just like I just want to line my fingers up and just wait. That's my beverage.
What's your favorite thing that you've ever made 3D wise?
Ooh,
Don't say
let's see.
Dickosaurus.
There's well, I didn't technically make that.
I
I
know.
borrowed that model from someone else,
I didn't say what your favorite
but
thing
I
was to
did make
print, but
improvements to it. And the improvements I made was I added the base down here um, because the other one was really too thin. And then if you're on Tumblers After Dark and you see other people's versions of these, they don't look as good as mine um, because mine are all printed in resin, 50 microns of accuracy, all the sharp points. Um, I also put the straw hole in here, and it's actually precision like done. It goes like very well. The old straw hole. Um, yeah, I cut that out of the model. I added the base. It was a lot of work to actually add the base because I had to follow the contours. Um, and my computer didn't like it because there's a lot of detail in this model. But it's very precise. It's very pointy. You got all
your
the
new computer
spines in the
doesn't mind it,
tail.
right?
It it minds it less, but it still minds. It's more. It works way better than my old one. My old one was. I think I did something and I'd have to wait for like 15 minutes. This one I can be like, it's like 5 seconds maybe. If I'm like moving around, it's like, whoa, hold on. Let me redo all this math. Okay, here's what it looks like.
Right.
As opposed to the other one. Even just opening it was a pain. This one opens it fine. I can move it around and do stuff.
Good.
But yeah, the sequoias that she posts on Tumblr's After Dark looks absolutely gorgeous. And then you'll see other people's that are like this. And I don't know if they're doing them out of molds, like the one that Heather had that was made from an FDM 3D printed part, which does not have this accuracy and precision. And they look like garbage. I think I finally threw away the one that she had that the wings were broken off of, and
Yeah.
the side by side because they're the same size. The detail was phenomenal from this one versus this one, and then the mold that I made for her, even though it didn't come out that great because it's hard to get resin into all those little tips because they're
Mhm.
bubbles. Still, night and day difference. Better than that other one because your molded part is only going to be as good as what you put into it, or worse. So if you have a lot better part to start with, you have a lot better mold. You can, if you put the work in, have a better part come out. To get that to work properly, you would absolutely have to degas it. The pressure chamber, you're still going to have all the tips would get messed up because you have little tiny air bubbles on all the tips, even with the pressure pot. So you'd have like little concave, like the tips would all look broken off. Um, Even with pressure pot. But if you vacuum degas it, it basically expands those little bubbles, and the bubbles will come out, and the resin will fill that void. Um, when I do stuff like that, I like to vacuum degas to pull all the bubbles out of my mold. So this one will be designed before it this way, and so it will pull the bubbles out all those little cavities. And then once I'm fairly certain I've had all the bubbles pulled out, I let the air back in and I release the pressure. So then any tiny bubbles that got to be really big now shrink down to be like nothing. It's really cool when you do that because you'll see bubbles that are like this big and they're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden you let the air pressure back in and you visually can't see them anymore. They just disappear because you're at like a full vacuum, and in a full vacuum that little bit of air expands so much.
Jeez. Yeah, because I know you've done a live going over vacuums and whatnot too.
It was just bubbles in general, and I did bring up the vacuum, which vacuum's easy because mostly it's a vacuum pump that I paid $200 for because it's a really good one. You can get one for a little bit less. Um, the closer you can get to a full vacuum, the better it's going to work. The thing that people hate about vacuum degassing to get bubbles is that air will expand, and unless you have a place for the resin to go, it basically it looks like it's boiling. it's not actually boiling. It's just all the little air bubbles are expanding and getting bigger, and they pop, and they're forcing the resin out until you get all the air out, and then the resin can go back in. Um, but you'll expand your volume like by 2 times as much sometimes, just from evacuating those bubbles. And once they come to the surface and they pop, then it goes back down. But you'd be surprised how much air is in everything. You start vacuum degassing stuff, and you're just like, geez. Uh,
You ever vacuum
and I
degas
vacuum
like
degas.
Coca-Cola?
Oh, that would just go forever. And then it
That's
would
why
be
I
flat.
asked, because it's got so much in it. It would probably go on and on and on forever.
You'd have to have your vacuum pump running for quite some time and probably open up a valve to keep the pressure from getting too low too fast, because if I let that thing just go full blast, it's just going to immediately turn to foam and go everywhere.
Yeah, it'd be
I think
like
there's
a
actually a YouTube
bad
video of some
laundry.
guy.
It'd be a bad laundry situation with
Yes,
too much soap.
I think there's a YouTube video of some guy doing that.
Hey, it
He's
looks
got
like
like his little box set
your
up.
honeycomb is done.
It did finish. It is
And you
finished.
said your other one was close to be was going to take about 45 minutes, right? We're at 46,
Yeah,
so
so that one actually, mm, I was going to say, it looks like it might just finished. Because when that one finishes, it's going to rise all the way to the top. That's still going up and down. But yeah, the honeycomb is done. I can actually stop that, and I can start another one. And when I start another one, I'm going to show you guys my little interface here. I, for whatever reason, is done. Sorry, guys. So, I have
yeah.
an
So
interface that I can
um,
actually
while
use.
you're pulling that up, do you still have the very first thing that you've ever 3D printed?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No, because the very first thing I 3D printed I was deployed and used the 3D printer for that. And I'm wanting to say it was a test part for the 3D printer we had, and it was kind of a new thing because the military getting 3D printing, be like, oh look, we can make stuff that we can't get other ways. And so the first thing I 3D printed was a test part for this 3D printer. I can't remember what brand it was. It was like $5,000 at the
Jeez.
time. It was very solidly built, but not feature rich. So it had the strength of a good expensive 3D printer. But at the time, 'cause this was like 2017, um, the capability wasn't there. So expensive $5,000 3D printer had a really nice volume, but you had to go in, and this is the one thing that you have to do with the Ender 3v2. To whoever was talking about that, you have to make sure your bed is absolutely level, and leveling your bed is super annoying.
Hmm.
On my V2, once I get it dialed in, I don't turn it off, because if I turn it off, I have to like re-level it. But if I leave it on,
Mm.
I can basically go in there, take parts off, and then tell it to print again, and I don't have to do anything. The thing stays pretty level. Um, but if you do anything like turn it off, turn it back on, or do some other stuff, or you have a part that's really stuck on there, and then you finally get it off, you can change the level of your bed. And we're talking precision of like hundreds of a millimeter that you need. And so you'll have to re-level it so you can get good prints. The honeycomb, you can tell I actually have it's leveled really well because I'm printing it without a wrap. So that means the honeycomb is adhering to the bed just fine the way it is, which means I have it actually leveled very nicely. Putting all those lines down, if it's not properly leveled, you'll end up with a lot of failed prints. Where on this one, what will happen is the part where I always end up grabbing it on the corner, it'll eventually stop adhering to the bed really well, and it'll get stringy. And I have like 7 failed honeycombs that I'm gonna give away or do something with at some point. I don't sell those, um, and they're in that corner because eventually, like the grease from my skin will basically make the PLA not stick. And so when I start seeing it get like that, I'll get some acetone and I'll clean it off. Clean your bed occasionally. The acetone works really well. IPA also works well. If it's closer to 99.9%, that's kind of preferred.
Yeah, IPA
If you're
stands for
using the
isopropyl alcohol.
acetone, yes. If you're using the acetone, be careful. Don't get it on other things because acetone will eat away ABS plastic and other rubbers and plastic things. Some plastics it won't, some plastics it will. PETG is fine with it, acetone. PLA is fine with acetone for the most part. But that ABS, there are ABS parts in the printer, and if you get the acetone on the ABS parts, it'll like melt them. And the other thing that'll happen is I think if you get it on the belts, it will mess up the belts. But you just put a little ABS on there. I like doing it when the bed's a little warm, and I'll wipe it on there real good, and you'll see your paper towel will be all nice and dirty from your filament. And then if the bed's a little warm, it'll dry off really fast and it'll evaporate, which you should breathe in. And then it's fine to print. But let me get this pulled up so you guys can see what I'm about to go do. With my printer. So.
Yeah, Sequoia's like, now the resin print's done.
Yes, that's the one I'm excited about. Gotta glove up for that one. Where's my Streamcaster? There it is. Start, and then I should have the feed over here. Where is it? So let's. Let's see that one there. Let's see, hopefully. There we go. Okay, so popped up. Let me get over here. So you guys can actually see. I have a touchscreen set up on my printer. This is actually on my phone because, it doesn't want to control their 3D printer with their phone away from home or not. I can actually go over and I can pull up the video feed for the printer, which is right here. Looks very familiar. I'm going to scroll a little bit. Let me turn off that SRT stream so it's not doing anything. Okay. But yeah, so I can
Don't forget to transition.
I can actually.
We can't see your 2 other cameras are still showing.
It's got a delay. Oh, yep, I see. There we go. Now we're good. I can actually take it and I can move my printer around. I can be like, hey, you know what? Why don't you go up a little bit? There we go. Let's go. Let's go. I've actually done this.
I see you now. You're moving the printer.
Yeah, I've done this remotely because I had a big print, and I actually moved the printer to where I'd move the print head down with the crossbeam, and then I used to push the part off the print bed, and I started another print. I can't do that with the honeycomb, too low profile, but I've done that with other parts, and it was fun. I've got my temperature profiles, so I can actually.
So you're using your little robots to go move.
Yes.
Okay.
You can actually set up G-code to do that at the conclusion of your print, but on this one, you want the bed to be cooled, so that glass bed that it has, when it's hot, these parts will like lock on, and then once it cools off, they come right off, which is awesome. I love it. Okay, so we're gonna get back over here. The thing I'm gonna push, so you can see this is my honeycomb print, 5x7 inch. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I've got more files down here for all sorts of different things. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to push this button right here at the very top left corner, and it's going to start my new print. That one's ready to start a new print, but you're going to see me take the other one off, but you won't hear me.
Kayla, good question. So Victor's gone overboard in a really cool way to show. I'll show you guys. I'll show me real quick. All right, I guess Victor's pulling this off of that camera on the bottom left. But yeah, Victor's gone overboard a little bit, showing everything as far as what's going on. A couple different printers he's got. Right now he's pulling off one of the honeycomb molds that he's done. He just hit print on his phone, I think. So it's in the process of printing, so he can show you where everything's going to start printing.
To my live stream. Transitions back over. All right, so you guys should see that printer start. You saw my stuff reset, basically saying it's starting over. It's going to basically run to the temperature profiles. It's going to heat up the bed, heat up the nozzle. When those are ready, it'll start printing, and we should see it start moving around and printing in a little bit. But now I'm going to go take care of the resin. So for the resin, what I'm going to do is I got to take it off the build plate. I got to wash it in IPA for a little bit, and I have to cure it for a little bit. So I'll be back and forth, and then I'll show you guys the parts when they've been cured a few minutes. So when I do these wrenches, I cure them a lot longer. You can actually cure these in sunlight. Yeah, this is just UV resin. Very tough UV resin. Yeah, just.
You making drumsticks
yeah.
over there?
Yeah, my wrench handle. So the it's tough resin. So I'll get those taken care of. I'll be back and forth, and then we'll look at the little part that came off, and maybe we'll get around to actually taking some measurements.
I think Victor's going to be in this for the long haul. This is going to be probably a longer interview than we typically do. So, goodness. It's amazing to see all the stuff that he knows how to do and the things that he's figured out over the years of whether it be in the military, which I know he does a lot of 3D printing and stuff with that. But he's always got different ideas of how to make things work. But yeah, Kayla, that's a pineapple in his arm. It's funny because a lot of people don't know this, but Victor and Heather have matching tattoos. So here he's getting ready to take the resin print that he just got through doing off of the base. It's so funny that he doesn't have microphones and stuff set up. Oh, his honeycomb's about to start. So y'all can see the honeycomb starting. So like we were saying before, he's got several different products that he sells. He's got these 3D things that he's in the process of printing right now. These are probably going to be listed on his Etsy store. So this honeycomb that you're about to watch get printed in that top right hand camera that he's got displayed right now is usable for cups. He actually helped make those for us for his Etsy store, and he's made other things too, like the wrench handles, like that steampunk handle he's in the process of making now. He's got all kinds of cool stuff that he's been making here lately. So here's where that 3D honeycomb is getting printed. He's showing off his resin print there on the top left camera. I guess that piece that he's holding at the bottom is the base, and he's prying the actual resin piece off of the base. And it came off just like that. Yeah, it's very neat. It's kind of oddly satisfying to watch, to be honest. Just because it's like watching dominoes fall in a way. Like you set everything up just to watch them fall. But you can't look away to a certain extent. Hey, he's got a little bear. See, I can see the little resin printed bear. Probably going to be listed on Black Bear Glitter, where he's in the process of making molds for Black Bear Glitter, and that's where he's bathing them so that they get cleaned up a little bit. So when he says IPA, he means isopropyl alcohol. Yep, and little 3D honeycombs are getting printed off in that top right hand corner there. Yeah, and Black Bear Glitter is going to be a supplier of a lot of these items that Victor makes. If you're interested in looking to see exactly what items he does offer, you can go to shitvicmakes.com. It's a really funny website name. He's showing off his 3D, his resin molds that or resin prints that came out. But yeah, he does wrenches, he does footballs, he does the pins. If you're gonna make pins, a lot like this one, you can. He makes an adapter that holds them all. He has also made glitter pouring. We'll call it the what was it, the Sparkle 6 or something like that, where he actually set everything up on almost like a bearing so that you can pour glitter into bottles. He made that for Christy and Herman, so that was very nice of him. You'll get to watch Victor work. It's all the nerdy stuff. Maybe he's about to start another print. Yep, looks like he's in the process of starting another print with the resin printer. That, or I'm not sure if there's a cleaning process that it does before it starts printing something else, or if it does like the honeycomb did and it heats up or gets everything set up so it can start the print. I think this stuff's fascinating. I've thought about getting into the 3D printing side of things, but
Okay. So I could hear you guys, but you can't hear me because I don't have any mics over there. Um, those cameras don't push audio; they video only. So I started a new print of the wrenches, so that'll be two more. Those will be finished in like 8 hours, and they have to be washed and cured. Let me. Okay, I want to make sure my video is right. So yeah, started new wrenches. I basically took the parts off, cleaned the build plate. I'm gonna hear that thing beep in a second because they're washing. Once they finish washing, I'll let them cure for like 5 minutes, and when they're done curing, then I can bring them over here, and they'll be safe to handle without gloves, and then let you guys get a better look at them. The one item is the Black Bear Glitter straw topper that Christy and Herman asked if I could make, which I'll probably eventually turn to a mold. But you gotta start somewhere with it. And then the steampunk lid for my steampunk needle, which is awesome. Spent a lot of time making that, but I am super thrilled about it. If anybody wants their own steampunk handle stuff cup, that will not be cheap to get parts for, but it is very incredibly unique. It's not. It wouldn't be something as expensive as Fawn's diamond bedazzled cups, where it's like $300, but it would definitely be more like your Dragon Eyes, where it's an elaborate cup. But yeah, that thing is super cool. I'm so thrilled with how it came out.
is that the like your proudest thing that you've ever made?
I don't know if it's my proudest. It's just the one I'm most excited about right now.
Yeah.
There was a drone release drop mechanism I was making. That one was pretty cool.
Yeah, you explained that
I
to me
could
last time you were
release,
here. I thought it was really neat.
yeah, I could release a relatively heavy payload using a little tiny 1.5 gram servo. I think I actually have this.
So he uses his 3D printer for a lot of the
So
military related
one of
stuff
these
too.
little motors, which has like very little strength to it. The whole thing, it's called a 1.9 or 1.8 gram servo because that's how much it weighs. The whole thing weighs less than 2 grams. And so I could have this drop like 5 pounds with a release mechanism that I designed, which was super cool. It's like this weird sliding mechanism. It's got loops and everything. It's under spring tension. And so one thing I actually taught a long time ago, I used to teach wilderness survival at a Boy Scout summer camp years ago. And I took some of the ingenuity behind doing traps and snares to basically have this little teeny tiny mechanism release a heavier load um, with very little strain on this guy. So basically, this guy does just a little tiny bit of work. It can't handle much stress. Um, and then it moves. It's not under a lot of pressure. And then the rest of this mechanical advantage takes over. And then, boom, release drops payload. It was incredibly efficient. It worked really well. I did do a test drop with 20 pounds. I did do a test suspension with 20 pounds, which was really hard. Technically, I did the math on it, and the breaking point should have been like 100 pounds. And I'm using these little tiny loops that are made out of plastic that I 3D printed. Like most of the thing is 3D printed. Um, and then it was like technically you could probably safely go up to 50, but if you compensate for other stuff, then like maneuvering a drone around or whatever, and the strain that's going to be employed, um, 15 to 20 is probably like your max. However, that's plenty, and it's like this interchangeable payload, so you could attach other stuff to it to drop whatever you want. Like if you're doing search and rescue, you could fly a phone out. That was the other thing. It had a lowering mechanism, so not only could you drop something, it would safely lower it to the ground, as opposed to just dropping it and letting it crash and burn. So if you're doing like search and rescue, you could find somebody who's missing. You can't get to them, but you've located them. You can talk to them through the drone. You could like drop a radio or cell phone to them, and then now you have communication, GPS device, whatever. So now you can talk to this person, or you could use it for all sorts of stuff. That was a really fun project for me. Uh, didn't finish it. Might go back and finish it. Might not. Don't know. It's in a good place though, where it's like I could totally revisit it. The mechanism itself worked. The lowering mechanism I wanted to redesign because I was using a gosh, I'm trying to think of the proper term for it. Magnetic flux braking system. If you have no idea what that is, I understand. It's really confusing. If you've ever taken a copper or aluminum tube and dropped a magnet down it, you'll know what I'm talking about. See, when you have a magnetic field move across a conductive field, they create fields that oppose each other. And by oppose each other, they're resistant to change. And that was the really cool thing about this braking system was it didn't have any complex because you could do the same thing with a motor. It didn't have like a motor or anything to like lower it. You could just release it and it would lower, get to the end of the string, and that would be it. So there was no complex parts or electrical components. And so the harder you pull on it, the more braking force it applies. And the less you pull, the less force it applies, which is perfect for lowering something to the ground. I actually used it to drop a cell phone from like 2 stories up, and it would lower at about 2 feet a second every time. Just onto concrete. Just I'd release it, and the thing was just like it accelerate, and it hit that threshold of that perfect speed to where it can't brake or accelerate any faster, and it would just slow down and then sit down on concrete, and it was awesome. It was really cool to watch.
Well, it's like watching your baby.
Might go to servo. Yeah. Might go to the servo so I can actually like lower and then raise stuff back up. But if you raise it back up, there's be complications with re-engaging the mechanism. So, not necessarily the solution, but I could do faster drops or do some other stuff to change when the magnetic braking effects. If I have a servo, I can do that electronically. Um, Requires a lot more components and some other stuff. Um, if you guys have ever played with, which you probably have never done this, um, dropping something from aircraft, it's horribly imprecise. You can do the math on if I drop this object from here with wind resistance, speed, and everything else, it's going to land in a circle that's this big. The higher up you go, the bigger the circles get. That's why World War II we had like carpet bombing, um, because you're like, I think this is where it's going to land, but I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in here. So they just drop a whole bunch
I
and
love
hope
that
they
you
hit their
just
target.
said, like, I know none of you have ever probably done this, but if you ever dropped anything from an aircraft, like, this is not normal, Victor. We love you, but
I know. I also have built my own drones that I've flown over the cell network on a laptop that I didn't even have to physically be paid for. It's fun. I build electronic stuff all the time. That's why I have all these cameras everywhere that are doing all different things.
I
I
think
have
it's
one that I
awesome.
can actually turn that lamp off and on behind me. Ooh, that other part's done that. I guess gotta let that cure.
So he could talk about this stuff for hours. Ask me how I know, because he does at our house, and it'll be like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, dude, I gotta go to sleep. Why do the 3D printers seem to follow a random pattern? That's a good question. Yeah, I've never dropped anything out of an aircraft either, Laura. So I love him for saying that. I think that's so funny because not your average, not your average everything, as far as not not your average thing that you've done in your lifetime. I've definitely never dropped anything from an aircraft. I've never jumped out of an aircraft. Never done skydiving. I don't know that I could get Heather to do it either. She'd probably be like, haha, nope. Heather hasn't even flown before, so much less getting her to jump out of an aircraft or drop anything from an aircraft. So once Victor gets back, we are probably going to call it, unless you guys have some other questions. Unless he has something that he wants to show off before we conclude this one. But yeah, I definitely want to say thank you up until this point for watching, if you are still watching. And if you're interested in knowing more about Mr. Victor, he's in our group and he hangs out with us on a regular basis. He's always making comments, always making most of the time inappropriate comments, which keep things lively and interesting when he's not making 3D molds and doing things like he's doing right now. And I guess that's the curing system off to the left of the resin printing machine there.
Yeah, I'm kind of a super nerd. I do nerd things. I understand I'm a super nerd. It's okay. The world hates
I didn't
us.
say anything that I wouldn't say to you, to your face. You could talk about this stuff for hours. Like I've sat in there
Yeah, pretty
fascinated to
much.
be like, at this point, I have no idea what's going on because my eyes are crossing because of the fact that you are so passionate about it. But I genuinely just do not understand what's going on. But clever.
Oh yeah, this is my little thing for my. You can't buy this. I
Yeah,
have a little web page with buttons to turn my lamp off and on.
just your lamp.
Um, Yes, because that's all I have it doing. Uh, Technically, I could have that do other stuff. But yeah. Uh, 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 um, yeah. Um, I have other devices. All of do weird little things. I could make stuff like this all day long.
I think that's awesome. My, so at some point, when you move closer, what my game plan is to. I know you've probably either made this, or no. So before I ask my question, or before I ask my thing, uh, Herman asked, "Why does it look like the 3D printer is going in random patterns as far as the honeycombs go?"
So that's the slicer. So what happens? You'll have your 3D model like this guy, and then I have to convert it to an STL, and then I have to throw up my slicing program. So for my slicing program, I typically use Kira. There's some other ones available. There's some that you can pay for that have some really awesome features. Um, and I will get this set up so you guys can see it live. There's my screen. Change the settings on this. Yeah, Kira's not available yet. Okay. I'll wait on that. Kira's opening. And you'll kind of see what I do with my part. So I'll throw it on the 3D printer in this virtual 3D printer model. And what the slicer does is it takes my 3D part and it literally slices it. Because the 3D part is not a 3D part. It's a bunch of 2D pieces. And you just stack them all on top. And you end up with a 3D part. So it's a bunch of little slices. Kind of like if you look at a topographic map. I can't talk. Same thing. Okay.
No one's mad.
Let's see. This should be. Change the setting on this. Okay, we're going to kick this over to Kira. Okay. Transition. All right, so now I have Kira open. This is one of my 3D printers. This is right now set to the Ender 5. I've got my 6 in here, which you can see is huge. My Ender, don't I have the Ender 3? You know what? I don't think I've sliced anything on my Ender 3 on this laptop yet. Ender 3 has a very similar build volume to the Ender 5, and this is my FL Slim Q5, which is my little Delta. It's the guy that looks really cool to print. Very small print volume, as you can see. And then once we go up, we got our Ender 5, which has a 300 millimeter Z-axis. The Ender 3 is 220, I believe. I'm going to go to the Ender 6 Max is what I have, and that guy's huge compared to this guy. A lot bigger parts can be printed, 400 by 400 by 400 millimeters. That's my build volume. So I will throw a part in here, and let me find something kind of big, if I have a big one. I can make something big too, it doesn't have to be big. Where's the Black Bear glitter? So the Black Bear glitter straw topper, the way I imported the image in, it's like at 10 times scale. So I imported the image in and I did all this stuff with it to create a model. When I print it at 10% of the original size. So the thing's actually huge. There we go, single piece. So let's throw this over in Kira. This is a big straw topper because it is like massive. How big is this? 475 millimeters wide, 200 millimeters tall. No, 200 millimeters thick. Almost 300 millimeters tall. If you guys were wondering, that means this thing's almost a foot tall. This massive bear. So, what I would do to print it is I would end up orienting it appropriately. So let's rotate this around. Let's just make it stand up, because why not? And I can rotate this way, so now we can see the front. And then I can actually arrange models. No, it's not going to do it. Let's have the center. There it is, center selected. Ooh, centered it really weird. Okay. And we will scale this down to a more manageable size. Let's do 50%. There you go. Okay. So now we have our black bear glitter model in here. Over there. We got our mountains and our trees. So I change all my settings over here. So right now, top and bottom thickness 1 millimeter. On this guy, 15% fill, that's fine. Cubic is fine. Cubic is actually a really strong infill pattern, but all these infill patterns, they look different. Visually, the gyroid is awesome. Structurally, it's also awesome, but in a different way. It's more for flexibility and instead of rigidness. Cubic's more for rigid. Speed, this is how fast I can print. My printers mostly will print about 50 millimeters a second. The Delta I have, the FL Sun Q5, I can go a lot faster. I've pushed up to like 150 to 200 millimeters, I think, a second. And that's how fast you're extruding plastic. The resin doesn't care if I fill up the entire build plate. It cares about how tall the parts are that print. So that's what takes time. It's so many seconds per layer of UV exposure. So let's see, cooling support. So on this one, absolutely need support. A raft, that basically means it's going to put this big old base around. Dual extrusion, don't have that. Okay, so we can close all that out. And I would slice it. And when it slices it, it's going to go through. And it's going to do all these layers. And right now I have a 0.2 millimeter layer height. So every 0.2 millimeters, it's going to basically create an image. And it's going to create another one every 0.2. And then it's going to basically draw those out. And it's going to determine its infill pattern. So the slicer actually determines how that moves. And it's supposed to be, it seems random, but it's supposed to be an efficient pattern. Or pattern. Gosh, I can't talk. An efficient pattern to basically print as quickly as possible. And the honeycomb, there's no good way to do it because you have to hit like every line only one time. And it does the inside of the honeycomb, the outside of the honeycomb, and the path in the middle. So if you draw a honeycomb and then you draw another honeycomb and you do the inside, that's fine. And then you do the outside, joining those two. And then you get to where you're like, okay, single pass, I have to do the middle of all this. There's not a good way to do that. And then you do that with a whole bunch of honeycombs. And basically, it'll like do a section and it tries to do the longest tool pass possible to keep it as efficient as possible. So it'll like sit there, zigzag around, and it'll get all these done. And it'll go back and it'll hit all the little spots it missed. But it'll try to keep it as few as possible. To print one of those, I think it's about an hour and a half is how long that takes.
Jeez.
All right, so now that this is done slicing, you can say if I print this in the size, it's going to take 780 grams of filament to print this at this massive size, and about 3.5 days on the printer. And then I can preview it with all the support material. It's going to take it a second. So it's going to put support all where all that blue stuff is. And then the raft is the stuff on the build plate. Down here at the bottom, this would be the raft. So the whole print would sit on this one flat piece of plastic. And it's good for when you don't have a lot of surface area on a large print. As it prints, it cools and you'll deal with shrinking issues. And the raft helps hold the part in place. But yeah, and you got all the support material to do all the little crazy stuff. And I think on this one I have it set build plate only. So that means any overhangs where there's something underneath, it's not going to put support material in there. I can change that. And you can see how it looks different. But basically, this area right here, underneath the head, but on top of the foot, if I had it where it was all support everywhere, it would put support in that gap. Same thing in front of all these other feet. It would put support in those gaps. And it's set to a 45-degree angle. So if it's deeper than 45 degrees, it'll put support there. If it's 45 degrees or less, it won't put support there. But yeah, this would be an absolutely enormous. This is a cup topper. This is not a straw topper. This is a cup holder because this guy's big. This is like 6 inches tall, or 12, something like that. It's tall.
You said 3 days to make.
3.5. It's down here in the corner. You can see it. It says 3 days, 9 hours, and 20 minutes.
Golly.
20 minutes, and that's an estimate. It usually takes a little bit longer, and you also have to wait for the bed to heat up and everything else to heat up. But it takes longer. So Z-axis, 145 millimeters. That is, it's about 6 inches tall.
Dang.
A lot of detail on this guy. You got all those trees.
Yeah, no joke. I think that's awesome, man. Well, we're coming up on the
That's
hour and a half
outrageous.
mark, so we're
Man.
probably going to get ready to call it. You need to charge $1 million a part. A lot goes into each one of these, and it's really cool that you do it. And even Herman's like, thanks so much for the kick-ass straw topper, because you put a lot of work into the things that you do, and it's really cool, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. People don't realize it until they start measuring something. Or I'll have somebody ask for a custom part, and I'll be like, I know they don't have calipers, and I don't know what to measure. And then if I was like, can you measure this, this, and this? They'd come back and be like, I don't know. Or I'd be like, I need 12 more measurements of this, 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 and this. And they'd be like, what?
Yeah,
But
I can only
before
imagine.
we go, let me throw up the old honeypot ring. Let me kick my video back over. Window capture.
So that'd be the
settings.
last thing we show, and then we'll hop off.
Yes.
Because if I don't cut you off,
Sorry,
you'll
works.
keep going. I know how passionate you get.
Yeah, I can just go forever.
I know.
Transition. Okay. S- I'll not be acting like that. I know it's here. It's one of the first parts I made for the craft world. Is it there? The honey pot ring. And we got the first one, Mississippi, which is just a modification of the 25. So this is 25 ounce. These, if you look over here on the left-hand side, this consists of two things. So it's not as complicated as people think. This sketch actually isn't really doing anything. Well, it is, but it's not. I can actually have that. It's there for measurement reference on this sketch, which is basically for the cup diameter. Let me have that. It was okay. So if I throw this sketch up, this basically compensates for the curvature of the barrel of the cup, which is awesome. So this is not a straight
That's
line.
how it sits flush.
And I have my profile. Yeah, and I have the profile here of the actual shape. But yeah, I made this shape. I got the diameter, and I'm just like, hey, take that shape and run a circle. So when you start doing modeling, you start to learn how to build something in a different way than you would think to try to make it as efficient as possible. So for something like this, it's like, hey, I just need to profile that ring, get that right, get the distance right on the diameter, and I can take that profile and sweep it all the way around. And yeah, this is a single step for making this part. Make the sketch, revolve around, 2 steps, revolve around this guy, and that's it.
Man.
But you can see there's a lot of measurements in here. for,
Yeah.
The curvature of the cup and everything, which is why they fit so good.
So if somebody was
anybody's
to
like
need
they're
help
loose.
with 3D prints and stuff like that, would you be the guy to go to? You think?
I could definitely help. There's a lot to learn. As you can tell, I have a ton of knowledge on all this, and we're barely touching the surface. and you can just go down that rabbit hole.
And you will, and you could, very much so. And it would take a lot longer than an hour and a half to explain.
Yes, and I do have parts on Thingiverse if people want to do 3D prints. So that little red guy is on Thingiverse. You can print that. You can bolt that onto your Ender 3 V2. Um, it doesn't really require any special tools or hardware. There's sure to be holes there for installing a BL Touch, and so you just bolt it directly on there. It's designed to work with the little ink joy pins. So you put one of those in there, and you take a rubber band and you hook it over it, and it holds the pin in place. And then I have some generic instructions on how to do your settings for positioning it. But yeah, there's a lot more in setting up your sketch. But yeah, check out that YouTube video of my 3D printed drawing that butterfly because it's awesome.
I'm sure it's oddly satisfying just to sit and watch too. So
it really is. I sped the whole thing up, so it doesn't take forever.
Victor, thank you very much for doing this with us. I really appreciate it. I thank you for taking the time out and doing it, and allowing us to kind of come into your crafting space and showing us all the super cool stuff that your whole apartment is set up to do. And I'm excited to see how you're going to have everything set up once you move.
So when I move, I am definitely looking for a place where I'll have more room to do things. Let's kick this up.
got to promo a little bit, huh?
Yeah, this is my butterfly. This is super cool. Let's get that.
Yeah, everything's going to be up on YouTube too, Laura. So if you're interested in getting to know a little bit more about Victor, hopefully this gave you a little bit more to get to know him. I think that's super cool. Man, it's fascinating to me that you figured out how to do all this stuff, and I gotta say thanks again for taking the time out to do this with us. It means a lot to us. Yeah, that's so cool.
Check that guy out. Awesome. No, this is fun. I know many people are curious as to what's up with this Robert Paulsen guy?
Yeah.
Why is that a picture of Meatloaf?
Throwing everybody off.
Anybody's wondering,
incognito name.
I changed my name on my Facebook several years ago. Had a stalker incident. Technically, I'm a victim of domestic violence, documented, police reports and everything. Long story short, crazy girl refused to let me break up with her. Wouldn't let me leave, and it was November. It was cold. At one point, I was outside with just my pants on, my Chuck Taylors, because when I was trying to leave, because she refused to let me leave, she grabbed my jacket, and I was like, "I got a jacket in the car," and then let that jacket go. And then she grabbed my shirt and was tugging on it, and it's ripping. I'm like, "Yeah, I got another shirt in the car," so just let that go, and I just walked away, and then I refused to actually run to my car because I was like, "I'm not doing this." So I'm walking to my car, and then she runs over to it. So then I hit the key fob and lock the door, and I just go around the building, and then I'm sitting down by the highway in the woods because she's chasing after me in November with no shirt on, just my blue jeans and my Chuck Taylors, thinking, and it's 11:30 at night. I'm like, I don't have time to deal with this shit, and yeah, people would look at this the wrong way if I just did what I could do and forcibly leave, but that would be bad. So I was like, screw this, and I ended up calling the police, and it was great because they showed up, and she did the best thing ever. She told them the truth. She's like, "It's not his fault, officer. I would let him leave," and I'm like, "Yes." But yeah, I had my face was all scratched up from her fingernails. I had scratches and bites marks on my back and stuff, and they took pictures of it all. So I'm a victim of domestic violence. I don't feel like it. I just refuse to put up with her shit. And I wasn't about to go slap a hoe. So because I was like, I'll get in trouble for that because she weighed 100-something pounds. I did. I was like, I'd get in trouble for this. Even though I could forcibly leave, and and be like, no, I knew which way that would go if something happened. If somebody called the police, I'd be the one getting arrested. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I ain't putting up with this.
Way to take the higher ground. We're glad that you're here. Definitely glad that we got a chance to know your true identity. And you weren't all like, no, don't show my real name. So
I mean, I don't really care as much anymore, but yeah, that was that incident, and that was when I changed all my stuff, and I just kind of like it. I did make it blatantly obvious because it's a picture of the character Robert Paulsen as played by Meatloaf from the movie Fight Club. And then if you go to my Facebook page and you're not friends with me, you can't see anything really. But you have this picture of Robert Paulsen, Meatloaf, from the movie Fight Club. And the banner on my Facebook profile is Fight Club. So it's pretty obvious. If you go there, you're like, no, there's no. And then if you're friends with me, then you can see all my other pictures, and you're like, yeah, I know who this is. But it's designed to throw off the casual looker of they're like, oh, I'm trying to find this person, and they get to that, and they're just like, oh, this can't be it. And then if they invested 5 more minutes, they'd actually be like, oh, this is, I don't know, maybe it is. They're friends with this person. Who's this Robert Paulsen guy? Oh, this is clearly not their real name or their real picture or anything.
Man. Well, you've made it this far, and you're doing good, so.
I don't have to go through and read all these comments because this has been long. And I haven't been reading any of them. So
It's all good.
I got a lot of questions to answer.
People are just telling you that you're awesome, and they thank you for doing everything. And we're gonna call it for now. If anybody has any questions or need anything else at all, you're welcome to reach out to me, Heather, or Victor in any way. If I do have any questions for Victor, go ahead and make them in the comments now. Otherwise, Victor, I'm going to end everything on your end. I want to say thanks again for watching, and thanks for doing this with us. It means a lot to me. So, I hope that you have a good night.
Well, it was fun. All right, you guys have a good night as well. Keep on crafting.
Of course. Hey guys, so thank you very much for watching. This was a long one, but this is a very tech-filled one, which makes me happy because I know that's what Victor's really passionate about, and I know that he's just so smart. Like, he knows so much, and he really does a good job designing and doing a lot of really cool stuff. And I know this is like the interview a crafter thing, and we mostly focus on cups, but he does so much as far as his own version of crafting, which is definitely in the 3D modeling world. It helps us bring things to life that we wouldn't normally be able to do, like those football laces, like the honeycombs, like the wrenches, like the this, the that, the every way, that all the things that we wouldn't typically think of. We genuinely, with his help, plan to kind of break the craft world. And Heather says that from time to time. She's like, we're going to break the craft world. We're going to do some things and make some things that no one has ever seen before, and it's going to be amazing. That's like the diamond plate ones that you've seen. If you haven't seen those, definitely check out some of our other videos in our lives where we've done the diamond plate tutorial. He helped us make that with actual diamond plate. So if you like content like this, go find us on come find us on our Facebook group, which is All Things Custom Creations, and I'll put a link or a little plug up to that up at the top here. So if you see this little image, you'll know that that's us. That way you can hop on and join in on the coolness. If you'd like to see more of this type of video, then go ahead and make a comment here, or hop onto our Facebook group and make a comment on this live video, so that way you can see, and that way we can try to get on to that next one. I know we've got a pretty good lineup of crafters that are going to be doing these interviews with us, and I'm very excited and very grateful to be able to do stuff like this and make content for you guys this way. So thank you again. I love you all for being here, and it means the world to me that you did tune in. And if you guys have any questions or need anything else at all, you know where to find me. Otherwise, I hope you have a great night.